Miss you.
Miss you. Love
Miss
you.
you.
Love you, Theo. This is for you.
First, of course, thank you everyone for gathering here as we've done so many times before. As you well know, everything in this yard, every tree, every stone in the earth is a labor of love. This green paradise is my grandfather's spirit made manifest. Work that done by his hands that will go on long after we leave here tonight. It could be no greater pleasure for him than to see us all here together. So thank you forever for being here with us. Also, I want to extend a thank you to my parents and my Nana for the work they did making this evening happen, for all the planning they did with our event coordinator, Ariana. It's no easy thing to plan a party when you've lost someone you love so very much. So if we could please all offer up a round of applause for their love and their fortitude. Now to Pop. There's so much to remember about him, so many stories to tell. Some I have heard and some undoubtedly will hear tonight that will be brand new to me and to many of you. Unheard and yet familiar, because though the story is new, we'll recognize him at once in it. Ah yes, that sounds like Raul. Of course he did that, said that, and made that happen. For anyone privileged enough to know him, there could be no mistaking him. Certainly we all recall how generous he was. He gave his time, shared his home. He grew us food and poured us wine, avocados, tomatoes, limes, peppers. When I was in high school, he'd spend the summers growing me pumpkins for Halloween, also that I could carve faces into them and watch them die a few days into November. The more he gardened, the bigger the pumpkins got, and he was so proud to be giving them away to me. When I moved away to college in Nebraska, the five of us, my mom, my dad, Nana, Pop, and I, drove together in his truck. We made a week of it, stopped in Zion, the Black Hills, explored the wind caves in South Dakota. Stubborn as he was, he insisted on driving most of the way and spent half his words telling me there was no way in hell that all my stuff was going to fit in my dorm room. Then, despite how stubborn he was, when we finally made it to Lincoln and unpacked all of my things, he didn't waste a minute telling me that he was wrong and that he was so proud of me for planning so well. No shortage of people have commented on what a hard worker he was, that it was Raul who had taught them the meaning of hard work. This yard is a testament to that. 2 tours in Vietnam and his years with the LAPD, all the houses he fixed up with my dad, the 2.5 years that he battled cancer. All of it evidence of how hard he pushed, how determined he was to move forward in the face of impossible obstacles. Many of you probably heard him tell about a waterfall in South America that he wanted to see. A several-hour hike through the rainforest that no one wanted to take except for him. So he went on his own, a 74-year-old man hiking through the jungle for fun. A few years before that, on a family trip in Tuscany, he took the 30-minute hike to the nearest medieval town every day for a week, in hot sun and up steep inclines, a trip that I hadn't wanted to take more than once. While I was up at the house napping and swimming and drinking Italian iced coffee with a view of the sea, he was outpacing the whole group up every hill. Quick aside, this region of Italy has quite the wild boar problem, but I suspect that if he had run into a wild boar, the wild boar would have been worse off. This was also the trip where he taught me how to kill a man with a pen. It's not a joke. I can show you how later if you want.
True story.
When we were home this last Christmas, I had occasion to visit with him a few times at City of Hope. We talked about lots of different things. How much he loved my boyfriend, how proud he was of my job. But mostly he was listing all the tools in his garage that he wanted to give me. A small bandsaw for cutting fun shapes, his electrical equipment, because electrical work is really quite easy. His glass cutting tools, because that's easy too. Once you take a class, he said, and you can make anything you want with it. Like the stained glass window in the downstairs bathroom, which he also made, like so much of the furniture in their home. He knew that I, like him, knew the joy of making something out of nothing, of being able to say, I made that, and isn't this place just a little bit better for it? Like his garden. Gardening takes a good deal of faith. Even if you're knowledgeable, and you're watching the weather, and you're doing all the right things, you're still just putting seeds in the dark earth and hoping that something good and green is going to shoot out of the dirt. It's messy and risky, and it was something he couldn't wait to get back to when he was well again. I want to work my hands in the dirt again, he said to me. One of the last things that he said to me. Because even at the end, he hadn't quit on himself. He had accepted that his body might quit on him, but he wasn't going to quit. Even when things looked imminent and there was no way forward, the doctors offering hospice care, he wouldn't take it. It was only when he'd had a stroke and had to be sedated, and the choice was no longer his, did our family make the difficult decision to let him ease into his rest. He was taken off of his forced air machine and put onto a regular nasal cannula. We were all sure it would happen right away, without the machine breathing for him. But even then, his heart hung on another 4 hours. He fought until the very last moment to be there with us. I don't share this to make anyone sad. Rather, I want to highlight something about him. Something I think we all know, even if we hadn't put it to words as such. Yes, he was a hard worker. He was generous and stubborn and wouldn't quit, not even at the end. He couldn't, because above all else, he understood what a gift it was to be here. The world is an ugly place, and he understood that better than most. But it's also beautiful. It's full of waterfalls and rolling hills and wild boar and ripe tomatoes. We have seas full of scallops and mussels that he dived for as a boy. We have ancient wonders and natural beauty, and even better than all of that, sometimes all the people we love most get together in one place, and while the hours away eating and laughing and talking into the night, we lend our ears and our hearts to each other. We bear witness to each other's sadness and joy, and we make the world more beautiful by sharing it. Because when we're together like this, the things that hurt don't hurt so bad. He couldn't quit because he understood that as long as there's even the smallest chance of this right here, then you don't give up. No matter how hard or ugly or scary things are, you don't quit, because trying is always worth it. So I hope that if you carry any part of him with you, it's that. It's his unshakable knowing of what a gift life is, of how worth it is to fight for every last breath that you take on this earth. I hope you chase waterfalls and work your hands in the dirt and share every moment you can with the people you love the most. I hope you remember what a gift it is to give of yourself. Because as long as you're doing that, then he's still here with all of us. Thank you.
Woo! Good job.
So at this time, anyone who would like to come up and share any beautiful, happy, silly thing about him, please do. We have all the time in the world and all of these people here to share it with.
I'm Brian Hansen. My wife is Olga. She's taking care of our grandchild with Natalie up in the room there. I want to thank Connie and Raul, Alicia and Vianney for hosting this fabulous occasion, made everything possible. My comments are a little more general. I'm from the East Coast and haven't had the intimate relationship and to have seen Raul as much as most of you have. He was the first of the brother-in-laws to marry into the Valbuena family, and I was the most recent, or the last, if you will. And as such, I have known Raul probably for the shortest period of time of most of those present. But from the first time I met Raul, I was a friend. Raul was one who never knew a stranger, and he accepted me as a friend and as a member of his family, our family, from the very first. We lived a continent apart, and we only had the opportunity to see him briefly and intermittently, but even after a long separation, we picked up right where we left off, and we were friends all through it. Olga in particular has a connection to Raul that's almost as long as Connie's. She was 10 years old, that is to say, Olga was 10 years old when Connie started dating Raul. And Raul came into the Valbuena life through Connie at a very important time in Olga's life. Prior to that, the Valbuenas would vacation at the Salton Sea. And Raul comes along and says, you know, there's a whole lot more to California to see than the Salton Sea. And he started taking the entire Valbuena clan into the redwood forest, the sequoias, ponderosa pine forest in Northern California. And Olga remembers that smell of pine. And hardly a day or a week goes by when she doesn't tell me how much she loves the smell of pine. And it brings back that memory of Raul in those formative years for her when she first smelled the pine forest. And so Raul is always in Olga's heart, and she's reminded of Raul every time she smells pine. Now, I learned quickly that Raul liked to talk. And he could talk and talk and talk. You could say he had the gift of gab. But when you listen to Raul, he always had something to say. And you could always take it to heart. I never found Raul to be full of hot air. He had something important to say. Raul liked to share the things with you, with all of us, that he made. This beautiful space, a kitchen, furniture, as was mentioned. And he would share that out of generosity. He never was sharing it in a way to show off. It was from his heart. He could tell you about how he worked in real estate, but he never bragged about that. It was just part of him, that hard work that realized the beautiful things that he could do. He would tell you of his service in the Marines and with the police force. And he would tell you fabulous stories about those times. But in telling you that, he never told you how hard it really is to do those jobs. He made it seem like it was an easy thing to do, and we all know that's not the case. Raul obviously accomplished great things with his family, with his ventures, with his careers, but he always retained his modesty. Raul had a strong moral compass. but he was never self-righteous. Family, friends, and loved ones were Raul's greatest love. Connie was his inspiration for all the beautiful things that he made. He made them for Connie. Raul was a dedicated husband, father, grandfather, godfather, uncle, brother, and friend. All of us fit into one of those categories. Raul was an anchor, holding his family and friends together, both in good times and in difficult times. He was a magnet, pulling people back into the fold after they've drifted apart, even after having passed. He's pulled all of us back together today, on Monday, when we honored his life at his funeral. For the last 20 years, I've observed the influence Raul has had on us that are 3,000 miles away, most notably on Natalie and Elisa, but also on those of my children who had the privilege of meeting him as well. And central to almost all those memories that Natalie and Elisa have happened right here in this beautiful backyard. With family like the Amezcuas and the Valbuenas, family and friend connections are not diminished by those 3,000 miles that we are away. Raul was a Marine. He never gave up the good fight. For the last several years, Raul fought valiantly against an unrelenting foe, cancer. He fought with the unwavering support of Connie, whose courage and faith sustained him throughout. Clemencia and Patricia were there often. Maria heroically came to support Connie and Raul in a time of great need. Ben was never far behind also. On the East Coast, we retained Raul in our hearts, especially Olga, who had many Zoom calls with them. The Amezcuas and the Valbuenas never wavered in their support of Raul in his battle against cancer. Raul will always live in our hearts. We miss him deeply. We feel privileged to have known him. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
My name is Alan. I'm one of the husbands of one of the Valbuena women. And I'd like to share 3 events with Raul. I didn't prepare anything, so hearing Alicia's description triggered some memories. One, a few years ago, well, we were fortunate that Raul and Connie traveled with us in many parts around the world. So I have an interest in archaeology, and he got interested in it too, let's just say. One of the places we visited was Montserrat, outside of Barcelona, Spain. And they have a beautiful cathedral there, and they also have one of the Black Madonnas, which are very interesting. So we all went there, and you were there too, Mike. And after we saw the Black Madonna and then went down, Raul and I were alone. I said, Raul, did you feel any energy? And because I'm big into the energy stuff. And Raul said, you're right. I did feel something, which was a big step for Raul. Another thing, Alicia talked about the waterfalls. Okay, that was in Chapapoyas, northern Peru. They have what they call the cloud people up there, and it's not well known, but we went up there and visited, and there was a huge waterfalls. And the people there at the hotel we were staying at said, well, we're going to have a tour. If you want to go up there, you can have a horse going part of the way, but you have to climb. And the majority of us said, no, we're going to stay put. Raul said, I'm going to do it. So we said, okay. I mean, this is a high waterfall. I think it's like the 4th highest in the world or somewhere. And anyway, he did it, came back, and he said that was the most difficult climb I've ever done. I should have taken the horse like they said, but I didn't. It only went part of the way, but I walked, and I mean, he was exhausted. I mean, he just totally collapsed. And the third thing, the last time I talked to Raul several weeks ago, he called, and we happened to be in a parking lot where we live. It was really a bad place to have a conversation. Particularly my phone doesn't have a good earpiece, so I had to put it on speaker outside. And he said, you know, I want to share with you, Alan, an experience I had. I basically fell asleep, or I was dreaming or whatever. He said, you know, all of a sudden I saw myself in an area with clouds. I think Father Pat alluded to this on Monday. And he said, you know, it was peaceful, it was beautiful. I saw a lot of figures there, and you know, and I heard a voice, and I know you guys have heard this stuff before, but he told me, I've heard a voice say, you're not ready yet. You still have to go back. And he said, you know, I felt so much at peace. He said, I've been having nightmares and excuse my description, and I'll say it, but he said that my throat I was having my throat cut. And those were nightmares that had been bothering me. But he said, after having this experience, I feel at peace. They've all gone away. And I said, well, those are the things we talked about, Raul, you know, in terms of, we call them, you know, NDEs and things like that, you know. And anyway, I just wanted to share those things. He was a hell of a guy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stanley Mesqua. I'm the son of Raul's oldest brother. And, you know, some of the fondest times I have of Uncle Raul were the family get-togethers on Thanksgiving and Christmas, when all the siblings would get together and all of us cousins would hang out, and we'd all look forward to such a big family. So we used to all get together, and I just think back to those days. It was cherish those to the most. And, you know, Uncle Raul had so many nieces and nephews, and a lot of them are here today, and it's so good to see everybody. And, you know, I'll just say it, I was his favorite nephew. You guys all know. But no, it's funny the things you remember. You know, I forget so many things. I forget so many things in life. I mean, I don't even remember what I did last weekend, but some of the memories that you hold on to, like Uncle Raul, for example, when we were kids, he would always want us to punch him in the stomach. Come on, punch me harder, you know, you just want us to punch him, and it was always like rock hard, that stomach, I swear. It would hurt our hand when we tried to punch him all the time, you know. And, you know, and thinking back to the relationship that my dad and Uncle Raul had together was really special. Raul shared a couple stories with me Monday, one I had never heard, and I love hearing stories I've never heard about my father and Uncle Raul. Those really mean a lot to me when I hear those stories. Just seeing all these faces here just goes to show how much this man was loved and cared for by all the people that are here today, and I'm so impressed. And honestly, I can say from the bottom of my heart, wait a minute.
It's all right, man. Let it out.
I can say with all my heart that I'm very, very proud to say that Uncle Raul was my uncle. Seriously. And I also want to do a cheers to my dad, my Uncle Raul, and my Uncle Raymond. They're all up there having a beer together. The three brothers are in heaven now together. And I want to cheers to the three brothers up there. I love you guys. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, Aunt Connie. You're a rock. I've known you my whole life. When I think of Uncle Raul, I think of Aunt Connie, because you guys have always been. Mwah. Let me go give her a kiss. Love you.
Know you? But I had a very similar conversation with Raul before he passed. I mean, exactly. I mean, word for word, just about. He told me prior to that time that he was in pain, he couldn't sleep well. If you even touched him at one point, it felt like burning sensation. And then when he had that dream, that cloud dream, I'll call it, all of a sudden, he was able to sleep well. And he felt, you know what, I'm getting better, Pete. He says, hopefully you'll be able to come to my house and see me the way we are today. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Anyway, I said, no, I'm usually not that emotional, but I've known Raul for 50 years. And when I first met him, we were at the chief office. He thought I was a spy. He didn't like me. And he was writing, very intense. He's writing notes on me because he thought I was a plant. I was an undercover trying to, get him out of the job that he was in. And it turned out through weeks and months later, it took about maybe about 2 weeks when he started to talk to me and we became best of friends. Not only did we become best of friends, when he was going to get married, I lived in Alhambra at the time. He lived in Carson. And as a joke, I said, "Hey, Raul, you got the rings for the wedding, right?" He goes, "Rings? What rings?" I go, "The rings for the wedding." He says, "Oh, no. I think our roommate, Jerry Jelnick, has them and stuff." So he did not have the rings for the wedding. So usually the bride is late for the wedding. We were late for the wedding because of the rings, okay? And I remember calling, he says, "Where were you?" or something to that effect, "Oh, we had car problems." Yeah, car problems. Couldn't believe it. But anyway, I knew Raul since 1970, 50 years. We were LAPD together. We worked together, mostly undercover vice and narcotics, etc. And I have 1,001 stories about Raul and our escapades. And usually I would get us in trouble and he would get blamed for it. But just to tell you a couple of stories, one time we were in a bar working undercover, and our backs are to the wall or whatever, we're facing the bar, and all of a sudden they hear a voice, "What are you looking at?" And so I didn't know if they were talking to Raul or me. And I go, "I must be talking to you, Raul." He says, "No, I think they're talking to you." I go, "Okay, well." So I turn around, and the guy says, "You're dancing with my girlfriend." He says, I'm not going to hold for that, so I want to kick your ass. I'm sorry for the language. He says, "Okay." I go, "Well, you know what? Let us finish our drink, and we'll go out and accommodate you." So all of a sudden, we hear screeching of tires. Car rolls up to the back of the bar. We hear a bunch of noise going on, and we don't know what's going on. And we go outside, and the guy who chose us off has his head cracked open. He's dead, right? And the car takes off, and then Raul says, "Hey, we got to call the police." I go, "Raul, we are the police." "Oh, I forgot." I forgot that we are, And so that was one of our famous stories. There was another one. We were in Elysian Park, and they used to have like a riot squad, and the hippies or whatever at that time were throwing rocks at us and bags with feces and urine and things like that, and Raul and I are in a line there at the Elysian Park, and we're holding off our line real good, and all of a sudden Raul and I hit us with this stuff, and so we went after him, and the sergeant says, "Hey, don't do that, guys. You got to maintain the line. You're disciplined." I go, "Okay." So all of a sudden the sergeant goes off. We were policemen then. The sergeant goes off, and somebody cracks his head. His helmet opens up. He goes, "Hey, give me a break. Help me out." I go, "Well, Sarge, you told us to stay in line." So we went. Basically we went and took care of business there on that occasion. And so anyway, so I come giving you kind of a street side of Raul, the LAPD side. Like I say, I met him in 1970, and here we're 2023, and so he was not only my best friend on the department. I also happened to be the godfather of his son, and Raul did a good job with him, and just to let you know, Connie, lifelong friends, and that's and truthfully, I don't hardly ever get emotional, but with Raul, for you, buddy, make the exception. That's all I can say. Love you, Raul, brother Con. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Bob Bowden. I'm Raul's brother. I first met Raul in the Philippines on his way to Vietnam. I was dating his sister at the time, which is now my wife, and she told me to look him up. I said, "There's 100,000 guys over there." Anybody that's in the service, everybody always says that to you. But when the guys came back from the beach and said, "Hey, Bowden, some Marine says you know his sister." "What?" I said, "Where's he at?" He said, "It's on the Alabama." We were in what we call the Gator freighters. In other words, we carried Marines to go into Vietnam. So I went on the ship and looked him up. And you know, sailors and Marines don't get along together. And guess what? This sailor wound up in a bar with a bunch of Marines. But I'll tell you what, Raul and me, there was no sailor or Marine. We were brothers, and he was really a true man. And the word Semper Fi, that's what Raul was all about. He was a true Marine. And when I talked to his buddies, that's what they all said. Hey, you got a great job there. So thank you very much.
My name's Tim. I married into the group here. I've known Raul for about 15 years. And Raul is my friend. It saddens all of us that Raul can't be here today, physically. But like Alicia said so eloquently, he's all around us. And I want to share a story with you that I think is going to be very familiar to everybody here. Different, but most of you probably have a similar story in your life of how Raul affected you. And we can't control grief and sadness, but one thing we can control is how we choose to remember those loved ones that we lost. So I'll tell you a little story now. My family bought our first house back in 2019. Before we put an offer on that house, I called Raul and said, will you walk this house with me? Because he knew his stuff when it came to real estate. And I knew that if Raul put his stamp of approval on it, it was a good investment for our family. So he agreed and came out. We walked the house, and afterwards he said, how much do they want for it? And I told him, and he said, buy it. This house has good bones. You're making a good purchase. That was good enough for us. Escrow closed. We got our keys. That very next weekend, after we got our keys, the door rang at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was Raul Mesqua. And his truck was full of lumber and metal brackets, and he said, open your garage door, and I did. And we walked in there, and he said, when we walked this house, I noticed this beam in your garage was a little twisted. And whoever put those little thin strips of metal in there doesn't know what the hell they're doing. We're gonna fix it today. So Raul and I spent, well, you know Raul, like if Raul has something in his mind, he's gonna do something, either help him out or you get the hell out of his way. And so we spent the next few hours lifting that beam up, separating it from the post, slipping that new bracket that he bought, and fastening it on there. And when we were done, Raul said, now I know that if there's an earthquake, your family and your house are safe. So I thought a lot about that moment. Forgive me.
No, you're good, man. Keep going, bro.
Thought a lot about that moment because it illustrates exactly the type of man Raul was. Thank you.
I spent a lot of my summers here staying with Aunt Connie, Uncle Raul, and my cousin Raul. And so I'm going to go, you know, in those early years, Uncle Raul was still LAPD. He was a little bit of a hard ass. Sorry for my language. Some of those things, Raul and I would get up, and Connie would take us to practice. We'd do laps, and Uncle Raul would come home from a night shift. How many laps do you? What'd they tell you? We'd have to recount. We go. And here we are excited. We just picked strawberries, and Connie's making us strawberry pancakes, and you go, that ain't enough. Let's go. And we'd come up here, and we'd swim laps in the pool and go down and earn our pancakes. One summer, we wanted to go TPN with Raul's friends, and that was like, no. And So I think we toilet papered their door handle shut that night, just out of rebellion. I think they did have trouble getting out, but the next night Connie says, all right, he's got the night shift. We at 10:30, I'm taking you down. I wonder if you ever told him that story, but yeah, she took us to some random house just so we could throw a few out. I don't think anybody does that anymore, but that was our wild, night. It was Auntie Connie. And the final thing is, everyone knows Uncle Raul, Semper Fi, Marine, LAPD. Probably nobody really saw a lot of fear in him. I could say I witnessed that. Uncle Raul and Aunt Connie always came down, I think, when all of my cousins and I were having our kids, they'd come to the hospital. And my family, they said I had a couple hours left to go, so my family all went to dinner. Uncle Raul and Aunt Connie show up. They leave, the nurse comes in, and they come back in, they says, it's time. And you could imagine, if I said, my husband's not here, my family's not here, and Auntie Connie goes, oh, it's okay, Mija, we're here. And you want to see Uncle Raul scared? He was like, whoa, his eyes were big as could be, and I'm looking at him going, I'm with you. You are not going to be here for this. And Raul's like, no. And she's like, Raul, we have to. She's alone. And I'm like, no. So I think that was the first time I had ever seen that strong Marine have true fear in his eyes. And, as it was getting close and it gets tough, I really lost it one time at home thinking of him, and I could hear his voice just, Mija, it's okay. You know how fast he talked. It's okay, Mija, I'm good. You got to stop, because he always cared about everybody else before himself. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for sharing your life with me.
Hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nikki, and I had the privilege of having Raul and Connie as my godparents. My Nino Raul was such an important part of my life from such a young age. I remember being a little girl thinking I have the absolute coolest godparents ever, and my Nino Raul lived up to that standard for our whole relationship. My earliest memories are of backyard barbecues and of course pool parties, but also the endless nights of Pictionary, Outburst, Taboo, and any other loud, obnoxious board game you can think of. I was super shy and one of the youngest at the time, so I wasn't exactly the prime Pictionary partner. But I remember my Nino jokingly defending my pictures to the bitter end. He was doing what he always did, which was mold and build my confidence. Nino Raul had a tremendous impact on my life, and I truly am a better person for knowing him. When you are young, the adults that surround you are the only examples of what life looked like. And for me, luckily, God gave me Nino to look up to. He was the epitome of what hard work and a good attitude can do for you. His beautiful house that he made his own, his loving family and friends, and most importantly, his enthusiasm for life, was an inspiration to me and truly helped shape who I am today. Most godparents and godchildren may lose touch over the years, but my Nino and Nino took this role very seriously. When I was in college and needed a place to stay for a semester, they opened their house to me without a second thought. I truly cherished that time with them when our closeness grew even further, especially my long conversations with Nino about life during that time. He always treated me like a daughter, giving endless love and support, and I will miss him more than words can say. One of the hardest parts of his long journey with cancer and low immunity was the inability to see him and just give him a big hug, letting him know how much he was loved. I was blessed to see him in a few of his final days with us. The loving look in his eyes and the powerful hug he gave me somehow spiritually pulled all our love and memories into that one moment, and there was nothing but peace. That was one of my final memories of him, and I will hold on to it forever. Thank you, Nino, for your love. Thank you for your generosity, and truly thank you for setting the bar high for so many of us. We love you.
name's Liz Rico. This is Ernie Matsumoto, and we had the pleasure of working with Raul in the infamous PEST team. I'm sure you guys have all heard it, because every time I came to the pool parties, that's all Raul talked about. The PEST team, the narcotics team. Well, it was a great impact in Los Angeles. We did a great job, and we shut down a lot of streets, a lot of narcotics. Raul was, as you all know, the Energizer Bunny. He never stopped. He worked our asses off from, sorry, kids, from the morning till late in the evening. You know, we had to make sure we got out there and we did what we had to do, and we did a great job. To tap on Raul, I had a rental house in Fontana, and anytime I needed help with that house, Raul and I went over there and we did it together. He was always one that if you needed his help, he showed up for it. And him and Connie became family to us, family to our granddaughter with all the summer parties, and she was a baby. Connie always giving advice for all our kids and all our grandkids, and Raul, I mean, they're our family. So we'll miss Raul. He's in a better place now. He did a good fight, and we love you. And hopefully everything works out with you.
As Liz has already introduced me as Ernie Matsumoto, I did also work with Raul back in the 80s, the later 80s. But before I start with my experience with Raul, I'd like to read something from a friend by the name of Dan Honey. Dan Honey is also retired LAPD, and the two never met. And Dan Honey would have been here, but he's out of state right now on a trip, so he wanted me to send a message out to you guys and the family. And here's his text message here. I kind of edited it a little bit, but it starts off like this. I never met Raul face to face. However, he's a brother to me. Both of us have the misfortune of contracting myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS, and as you well know, that's what led to his demise. A mutual friend who knew our plights, Ernie Matsumoto, introduced us to one another. Raul and I spoke on the phone several times, updating one another on our challenges and looking forward to meeting once our nightmares were behind us. In fact, it was the plan that with Raul fully recovered, we would be here, Dan would be here, and we would party, and he'd be part of the barbecue club, so to speak. And then during our conversation, I learned about Raul's military experiences in special forces, serving in Vietnam, his LAPD experiences, his travels, and most importantly, his family. He bragged and talked about you guys, Raul, Connie, and everybody else, and he was really proud of you guys from what Dan was telling me. My impression was Raul was a man's man. Raul had become my friend and brother. God bless you, brother. Rest in peace. Even a guy that never met Raul in person became a friend of Raul. And they shared a lot of experiences with each other and the trials and tribulations. And so Dan Honey was a true friend of Raul, and Raul was a true friend to Dan Honey. Anyways, like what was mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity to work with Raul in the late 80s at Rampart Station. It's a unit, as Liz described, called PEST. And the acronym was People and Police Eliminating Street Trafficking. And it was a unit conceived to deal with the blatant drug problem in Rampart Division, which would incorporate MacArthur Park, Dodger Stadium area, and the Pico and Hoover area. So it was pretty, it was an interesting place to work. And most of the gangs you hear about came out of Rampart Division. The Cuban gang, the Miralitos, Mara Salvatrucha, MS, 18th Street, they're all based in Rampart Division. In fact, that's where MS learned how to become MS, and you hear about what they're doing nowadays. So we had that opportunity to deal with that situation. Raul put us on the streets. He worked us hard. Probably got thousands of hours of overtime. I got 500 hours of overtime, and I was able to bank that. Not to mention, we did make literally thousands of arrests within our small unit. Liz was one of them, myself, and Kyle Lewison, and Eddie Ortiz, who would have been here. He couldn't make it here because his own brother is battling cancer at this moment. So, you know, when it rains, it pours. So I just want to tell you about Raul. I could go into all the little war stories and stuff like that. There's just too many to mention. But what I can say is that he invited us back into his home after he retired. My wife, Esperanza Mariscal, she's in the back there. We came here, we'd come into this household, Connie and, you know, everybody would be here, and we would just like have fun, just hanging out at the parties, being part of the group. We would come here on more intimate basis, play a game called Sequence. I know about the board games. Oh my gosh, and he says, whatever you do not partner up with your wife because you will not be able to go home on a good note. So that was another thing about Raul. You know, he loved to play board games, and so did Connie. And the other thing is, when I found out about Raul and his need of having to have blood and platelets and whatnot, I took the opportunity, or I had the opportunity to meet with some people at some of these reunion functions, like in West Covina, the American Legion Hall, where there's a bunch of retired coppers there from LAPD, and some not from LAPD, but you know, they all look kind of like, they have the same color hair as me, you know, kind of white and gray, and some guys just don't have any hair at all, but they were all out there, and I happened to mention to them, I said, hey, you know, I'm here for a buddy of mine. You guys know this guy, Raul Mesqua, and a lot of these guys work Rampart, and a lot of these guys work Hollenbeck. And it's like they meet once a year and they have menudo. That's a big deal. Menudo and beer at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, something like that. And when I said his name, they said, yeah, we know that guy. He's a good guy. Always took care of his people. And that was all these coppers out in this sea of faces that I really didn't know who they were. And they said, well, yeah, we knew Raul. And my own personal experience with Raul, even though it may not seem like a big deal to most people, and I'll never think of firewood in the same context. Because I don't know about you guys, but Raul used to love having his fire pit. He even, you know, used to burn the wood stove, and he would have all this firewood, and then he would take it upstairs, and he'd have this big old wood pile up there on that top level there. And then he says, Ernie, I'm not using this stuff anymore. He says, why don't you come on by and use some of this stuff, and just come on by and pick it up, because we have a cabin, my wife and I have a cabin up in Crestline, and it requires wood for, you know, to keep that house warm. And so he would call me up and say, Aaron, I got all this firewood. I said, oh my gosh, I got to drop. You know, this is gonna be a lot of physical labor involved here. So I said, yeah, okay. So I came down here with my wife's Xterra. He had his pickup truck. We loaded up with as much wood as we could in both vehicles, and then we transported it all the way up to the mountain, up to Crestline, and then we have to unload it. And it required a lot of, you know, backbreaking physical labor, not to mention, you know, a lot of old man muscle. And I'll tell you what, and when he did that for me, he did it on like 2 or maybe 3 occasions, and we still have that wood. You know, we're still burning it. And I thought to myself, you know, as I always tell people, firewood grows on trees, right? Sweat equity doesn't. But most importantly, real friendship doesn't also grow on trees. And that's how I see Raul. That's one experience I get from that, from getting that firewood, that, you know, he was extremely generous. His friendship was a generous gift to me and my wife. And it's a gift that requires no wrapping, and it requires no explanation. It is what it is. And it's time like these that we kind of look through that wall of tears and we reflect, and we want to really cherish those memories of Raul more so than ever. And so I just want to say, God bless you, Raul, and you're in a better place, and we will get together soon.
Cheers.
Cheers to Raul.
So I thought it would be a really great idea when I was driving here to come up and give a little presentation, and I quickly realized, watching everybody else, that it was going to be horrible, but I'm going to give it my best anyway. And like Alicia, like that was the bravest thing like I've ever seen. It was fantastic. I was sitting over here with our college roommate team over here, and some of whom I haven't seen in 10 years, 12 years. And that in and of itself is, I mean, we couldn't find the time to get together for the last 10 years, but we did today. And I think that's a real testament to Raul and what he meant to all of us. In thinking about college, I mean, I know most people are like, they're college kids. What do they go? What do they go through? We certainly didn't go through what most of the people here went through, but you're a kid. You're away from home for the first time, and there's a lot going on in your life, and there's definite times where you're like, man, I wish I was at home with my parents right now. And the thing about Raul and Connie for me is they were always home for me. I don't think I would be at the place I am now without that. I mean, they were always there to guide us when our parents weren't there, and really just, I mean, coming here and when they came down to San Diego, took us out to dinner and everything else, it was like, hey, it's like being with your family. This is going to be okay, right? You can do this. So I just wanted to share that and just say cheers to Raul and God bless. Thank you.
First mistake, right? First thing I would like to do is commend Raul for that great eulogy that you gave on Monday. I mean, it was a beautiful send-off. I know your dad, looking down at you and stuff, would have been proud of what you said about him. All his accolades, all his things. It was concise, accurate, and just very beautifully said. And I'm sure that your mother was very proud of you too. Thank you. My name is Tony, and I'm Raul's first cousin. My mother and Raul's father were siblings. My earliest memories with Raul were when my parents would go to Raul's farmhouse in Dominguez Hill. They had a large fenced yard with lots of animals, such as rabbits, chickens, guinea pigs, goldfish, pigeons. I heard that there was a cow there and a goat there, but I don't remember that. I heard there, but I don't know. As kids, Roland and his brother Stan raised tumbler pigeons, and they would compete with their friends to see which ones could tumble the longest or the best. It was really popular in those days. We had fun running through the cornfields or the string bean rows, playing tag, kick the can, cowboys and Indians. That's what everybody did in the old days. One specific memory that I can recall from our childhood occurred during a couple of years when we had a lot of rain and there was a lot of flooding. This was in the 50s or something, before most of you were all born, I'm sure you know. During that time, a couple of large low-lying fields got pretty flooded with several feet of rainwater. One Sunday, when we went over, as we usually did, a couple of times a month, my dad and mom would take us. Raul and Stanley told me that they wanted to show me something. We walked for a while and came upon this huge body of water that looked like a small lake. Raul and Stanley had built a makeshift raft and invited me to go for a ride. But I was a bit skeptical, because when one person got on it, Raul, it would sink a bit and the water would come through the boards. That finally convinced me that even though it only held two kids, not three. We got on and we used poles that they made from branches and moved around the lake. After that, every time I went over, we would go to the lake and paddle around it. The fish that Raul and Stan had were large goldfish, is what they said. I mean, we were kids, 9, 10, 11 years old, but I think now that they were probably koi fish that got loose when some of the houses got flooded. Those are really fun times. Sometimes Raul's dad would light a large bonfire in the middle of the yard, and the family would enjoy it for hours and hours, just having fun and no worries. After After some years, Raul's family finally moved to Carson to the house on Realty Street. Some of the animals came, but not all. I think the chickens, the rabbits, pigeons, and the rabbits, the dog came. It was always fun to have animals around. The Realty house was a big change with more neighbors and more friends. We could constantly ride bikes and play games with our new friends. High school was coming up and less time for goofing off and more time was spent on homework and sports. When we finally got cars, we would occasionally cruise around town on the weekends or park on Blacktop up there and talk to our friends and the girls. I had an old Chevy and I can't recall what Raul had, but they were cars, so that was enough. We had some great times. Raul always seemed to have goals and was always trying to complete them. After we graduated high school, Raul joined the Marines. While in the Marines, he wasn't happy with just one specialty, so he attended various schools and became proficient in each: scuba diver, radar operator, I forget, but he had quite a few. He enjoyed the thrill, the excitement, and the danger of each new skill. After Raul was discharged from the Marines, he joined the LAPD and soon after purchased a home in Carson. I believe that's when he met Connie. At that time, Raul had some roommates who were his fellow officers, but after some time, he was down to one Jerry, good friend, nice guy, but he wanted one more, so he asked me if I wanted to move in. I accepted without hesitation. During the time I lived there, we had some special great times. Raul had a nice boat, and some of us would go fishing with him. On the days we had a good catch, we would invite people over for a fish fry. Raul actually took us to Catalina on his boat a few times for us to explore and to go fish. Raul also knew how to scuba dive, and he would go with friends to local beaches for lobster and flounder. Here's where I am really stretching my memory a little bit. Raul married Connie and moved to the beautiful house that we have here in Alta Loma. And I don't know which was first or what, because that's stretching my memory way back. I remember when Raul told me he told me that he had gotten a skip loader and dug the hole for his backyard pool right there, that first pool. He got a skip loader, you know. Raul wanted a pool, and he didn't give a hell of which way it was going to happen, but he just started digging the hole and got the other people to come in and make it, I guess, you know. And
he dug it all by himself.
He dug it all by himself. He dug the whole damn thing. I don't know where the dirt went, but yeah.
And the canyon.
There was no stopping Raul. When the pool was completed, it was beautiful. As I am sure many of you can recall, there were many memorable get-togethers and 4th of July parties here. Over the years, Raul and Connie did work on their home and made it even more beautiful. I was talking to Raul on one of the many times that he and Connie had us over for dinner and card games and board games. Raul told me his plans of wanting to raise a ceiling in his kitchen. I asked him why and how are you going to go ahead and do it. He said, well, you know, I think it will look better, and I'm working on a plan to make it happen. I told Raul, man, that's just too much of an undertaking. I thought it would be a huge project. The next time we visited Raul and Connie, it was done, and it was a masterpiece. When Raul put his mind to something, it was going to happen one way or the other. He would jump in, and whether he knew what was going on or what to do or whatever, he would make it work and make it happen and make it beautiful. Raul also had a Corvette and a Harley during his life. Raul enjoyed excitement and some danger in his life. There are so many memories of Raul and Connie and Connie's life. But I just wanted to touch on some of the memories that I've always remembered with Raul. I'm sure I've left out many good stories about our trips or about Raul's other accomplishments, so many of which were displayed today. Raul left a legacy that he and Connie and Raul can be extremely proud of. He served his country and community with honor and distinction. He honored his family with unending love and admiration. God bless you, Raul. Raul will be happy to be reunited with his parents. Reunited with his parents and his two brothers. But I wouldn't put it past Raul to want to go speak to St. Michael the Archangel to see if he has a special ops team for him to join so he could go suit up and fight evil. God bless you all.
Hello, folks. I can barely hear a lot of stuff that was going on, but it was a lot of fun to hear. Anyway, in case you don't know where I'm from American Samoa. My family usually have people speak for us, but for me, it's an honor to speak in the occasion as this. We're swim family. We met Raul and Connie when Raul was swimming. And our kids, we didn't know what sports they want to do. So they were doing pretty good in our swimming pool at home. It was just I forgot what you call it. But anyway, we told them to go and join the swim club at Hillside. Raul was already swimming there, and he was one of the top swimmers in the club. And my son, he was starting out swimming, and he was wearing shorts, beach shorts, and these guys were wearing Speedos because they were good swimmers. Well, anyway, my daughter and my son want to be as good as Raul. But anyway, Raul was a pretty big time swimmer. And he was trying to imitate, my kids become better swimmers. Why, within that summer, they became better than Raul. And so Raul became part of our family. And the only way we knew their parents is through the kids. And we always refer to Raul's parents as Raul's parents. And that time, it wasn't too long until we met Connie, and then we met Raul. And it was instant family to us. At that time, when I was talking to Raul, he knew a lot of stuff about Samoan people. And I said, well, I've been living around a lot of Mexican people. So when Raul talked to me all the time, and I said, you know what? I think you just became my Mexican brother. And I know I'm your Samoan brother. So instantly, we became family. My son was Raul's parents' son. And Raul and Connie's son were my son also. Anytime Raul needs help, I said, call my son, call Raul, get everybody together. And if you do anything wrong around Connie and Raul, they have every right to slap you. And they did the same thing with Raul when he comes over our house. He'll slip a cuss word here and there, and my wife will slap him. They say, "Not in this house, you don't do that." And I told him, "You see, that's the same thing your dad would do if he was here." So, on this day, I'm very sorry that I miss my Mexican brother. In behalf of my family, the Lavatai family from Samoa, we wish you well. And from this point on, I miss you, Raul. We'll take care of Connie as best as we can. God bless you. Thank you.
Sorry, this is kind of hard for me, but my dad was up here. Sister came up here. Little sister came up and did a killer job as always. So. What I must say, I guess, I always felt really special. From Raul and Connie. Been there my whole life, being the best examples of how a human should live. For your family, always there, unselfish, helping you out, setting the prime example of how you should live your life. If I lived to be half the man that Raul was, I feel like I lived a pretty damn successful life. And saying that, I felt real special. I see here, and there's like 1,000 people that he touched in the same way that he touched me and my family. I already thought he was the greatest man that ever lived, except to my pops, of course. Side by side, that Marine and that Navy sailor, talking about stories. I've heard them all my whole life, at least 50 times each. So, at least, being generous there. How my dad was saying, my mom was saying, "Oh yeah, my brother's in Vietnam. Why don't you look him up?" He's like, "Really?" And lo and behold, the two met each other, and how they both speak of how their time spent together there was truly amazing. But God, there's so many stories. One that he always told about me. My dad was overseas, Westpac. He took his truck with his camper shell. Connie, my mom. Me, I think Michelle was but a baby, 6 months old maybe. Driving down to Baja, think of it as Estero Beach. He's backing in. He's like, "Mijo, go to the back trailer. Tell me when I get to the back." So he's backing up. He hits the brakes. I hit the door. Door's not locked. Bam! I'm face planted in the middle of the sand. Because my mom's, everyone. From what I hear for the story, I didn't know, I was too little. He gets out there and he says, "Oh yeah, I picked you up by the ring of your neck. Like a cat. Picked you up, shake you off. Oh, you're okay, mijo." He's like, "You're there. Wah, wah, wah." Dust you off. "Come on, you're tough. Get going. Let's go." And that's the way he was, right? You know, "Hey, you're fine. Get up. You're tough. Make you strong. If it doesn't hurt you, makes you better." So that's when I think the last time we got together, he was telling that story. That and I so many about how generous and loving and what a fantastic example he did. I wish my daughter would have more years of that example in her life. But he truly was, I think, the greatest man I've ever known, will know. Each of us could live to be half as good of a man he was or is. We all will do pretty darn good in life. And I'll leave you with, probably everyone knows, be like, look at mijo. Look at mijo. Thank you.
So, for those of you who don't know, my name's Andy Artson. I was the physician caring for Raul for his blood disease and, the whole family. And, first of all, it's an incredible honor to be invited here, and I think it speaks a lot to the family and everyone that, even after everything he went through, that, I would still be invited here to be part of this. And I have to say that, as much as I felt like I knew Raul through all of our appointments, this is really a capstone event to see, what I felt, what I thought I saw, but to see how much love was there supporting him. And, it's very special to be able to see this. I do want to tell you some, a lot of you have actually supported through this, are actually supporting our program. And one of the things that you may not know is, you've heard about Raul's, obviously, or I've heard about his determined nature. And, when he first was being treated, because of his age, appropriately, a lot of the doctors said, this is it. I think, you're on treatment, it's not really working, and that's the last stop. And there's this thing called stem cell transplant out there. It's really meant for, sort of set up for younger patients. And, I think eventually we got some email exchanges because of our older adult program, and everyone was like, well, I don't really want, there's a guy, he's 76, and he's this, but, we wouldn't really transplant him. And we said, well, why don't we meet him first before we make some age-based determination? Who knows? We don't know. We only know a number. And, we had an initial visit, and I'll tell you, there's calendar age, and then there's Raul age. And honest to goodness, I did not want to stand up with that guy's biceps, but, determined. But more than the physical determination, which he had, he remained strong. It was that mental determination, and you can see it on someone. Call it what you will, but you can see it in the eyes of someone. And we said, well, let's see. And we brought him in, and every time there was a test to pass, well, that was his nature. If you said walk this much to pass, then he was running. And I was literally, we have all sorts of tests and whatever. I said, just be careful with him because he's going to break it. So he's going to make the test. So he passed all of his tests and super passed his tests. And we had these discussions, and just determined as always, we decided to go ahead. We knew it was going to be a tough road because he had been through a lot of treatment. And the irony of it is that he actually did make it through the treatment. That a lot of people said couldn't be done, and frankly, before him had rarely been done, meaning at his age, right? How many people told you no?
Bazillions.
Okay, but so he did make it through, and ultimately, of course, we ran into complications. But I'm going to tell you, we had a lot of clinic visits, and a few of the things really stick out to me. One of them was he was fighting a really bad rash, and you think of little rashes, but his skin was literally desquamating, coming off, and he was so determined that we'd come into the clinic and we'd have to adjust medications if the rash was there, and he was so determined, and we'd come in and I'd say, Raul, how's the rash? He'd be like, oh, it's better, it's better. And I'd have him take off his clothes, and he was like a Christmas tree. I mean, this guy, his skin was falling off, but to him, it was nothing because of what he had been through. He was like, oh, no, it's better, it's totally fine. And he was in excruciating pain, and it meant nothing to him. So we had a little joke, we quit asking him, and I just have him disrobe and take a look, because he was too determined to even get an answer about how he was doing, because his mind was always doing better and pushing him forward, and he pushed some boundaries, okay? And so even though at the end the disease returned, I want you to know that it wasn't for nothing, because now those boundaries have been pushed, and the next person after him on the hill is going to have an opportunity. And his yes, it's true. And so he honestly, he has fought for everyone here like he has his whole life. And that last fight, he left something for everyone. He left a legacy for the people here and beyond. And the doctors he dealt with now won't say poo-poo. And, you know, we've recently reported that in this group of people 75 older, we can do this, and, you know, we don't have to use age alone for it. And the only other thing I'd like to say is I'm going to tell you guys, Raul, everyone else, how much he talked about you in the clinic visits. We were trying to talk about medical stuff. He said, yeah, but let me tell you about my son. Let me tell you what he's doing and the company he's running, and he's doing all of this. I'm like, oh, and it was it not? So we just allocated some time for it, okay? We just said, look, we're going to have the family time, we're going to discuss it, we're going to have just a little bit about the medical stuff, just a little bit. So was it not every time? Was it? And he was telling me, he was showing me pictures, saying, oh, look at his title, and look at this, and look at that, and it was honest to God. He was so incredibly proud, and you were at every visit, and the family was at every visit, and now I can see why. And I want to thank everyone for letting me, you know, share a little part of your lives. So thank you, guys.
Anyone else? Hi, my name is Yvette, and I am Uncle Raul's first niece. So, a little eclectically here, I'm just gonna, some things that stick out in my mind. I remember one time I was in first grade and I didn't want to go to school. So Uncle Raul was there at the house and he said, okay, I'm gonna teach you something. Put me over his knee, and I didn't miss a day of school throughout college. I also remember how we would all get together for holidays, Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter, and I just couldn't wait for Uncle Raul and Aunt Connie to come, because I wanted to talk with them. I wanted to share things that I was doing in my life, in school and whatever, and it was great. It made a big impact on me. Another time, I guess I was flirting with speeding on the freeway, and I got a ticket. And I asked Uncle Raul, what am I going to do about this? And he said, just remember, basic speed law. And I thought, yes, perfect, I can win this. So it's just a lot of amazing memories. Life sometimes is crazy, and we, you know, didn't in recent years share a lot of time together, but I had spoken to him not that long ago, and when I called and said, hey, Uncle Raul, he's like, hi, mija, and my heart just melted. And it felt like no time had passed at all. And I was so grateful for that, for his love and his heart, and the integrity that he had. And I got off the phone. Well, before I got off the phone, I said, I love you, Uncle Raul. And he said, I love you too, Mia. And I think that'll stay with me forever. And I feel good about all of that. I will miss him. But now I can bug at Connie. So there you are. But thank you.
Anyway, I don't really know exactly what to talk about, but I was fortunate to have like 2 sets of really awesome parents. My parents are phenomenal. My dad was up here earlier, and then I had Raul and Connie, and Connie saved my ass. I don't know how many times. You know, you saved me from quite a few. Yeah. Anyway, Raul was another dad to me. He was always there for me. We had my son was baptized in this pool. We had my wife's memorial. We had my wife's graduation here. We had kids for his birthdays here. When my wife was going through her bout with cancer, Raul we call him the beer fairy, because every day I'd wake up and there'd be a cooler full of beer at my house, and it was Raul. Like, I just want to share a quick funny story, because I want to lighten it up, about how cheap Raul was. So Raul, no offense, but we called him the Mexi Jew. And when we were kids, we were, between me and Tim Borngreevy and Eric Napoli and who else is here? Me and you and Morale, Von Inns. We're his laborers, really. We did whatever he told us to do. This backyard used to be telephone poles and railroad ties, and it turned into this beautiful paradise back here. But when we built this patio back here, Raul was too cheap to buy 2x2s. So as you see on this patio, it's been there for, what, 30 years or so?
30 at least.
We built that as kids. But he was so cheap, he wouldn't buy 2x2s, he bought 2x4s, and we had to rip each one of them into 2x2s with a skill saw, not a table saw. And it took us at least a couple of days. And we ripped each one of them, and Raul, you know.
And then he made his primer each one.
Yeah. And Raul was the only one that would talk back to him, because I can go back. We had WrestleMania downstairs, and then us boys would beat the crap out of each other, and then Raul would come downstairs because we were making too much noise, and then he would beat us all up. And then we'd go to bed. But yeah, back to the patio, I was like, are you kidding me? We're gonna rip, why can't you spring an extra 10 cents a board? He was like, no, you boys are gonna rip all these, and then you're gonna prime them, you're gonna paint them, and 30 years later, it's not looking so great, but it's still there. And but I just appreciate the Mesquite family. I appreciate all you people here. All of you are, I grew up here, and you're all my family. And Connie, I love you so much. And yep, I love everybody.
My name's Chelsea. I kind of have a different perspective. My nanny and poppy live next door, and seeing all these little kids around, that was me. So I used to love that this fence was there, because I'd get a little chair and I'd stand on it, and my hand would come over, and my nanny and poppy would tell me go help Raul get the avocados, the ones that fall on the ground, get them. So I mean, as a kid, I'm well, okay, I get to be dirty, whatever it is. So it was just, I grew up with all the stages of my life knowing that Raul and Connie are next door, and they're watching my grandparents and checking in on them. I used to love their 4th of July parties. I was literally that age, running from this pool, going through the fence, the other pool, and even when they weren't home, I would be using their pool as a kid. I mean, they didn't have ring apps or any of that, but I used to, both of these backyards were just my adventure, and anytime Raul would see me, we'd be chatting, and, every stage of life, and, I just got married in October, and it was a goal of his to make the wedding. But I didn't put it past him, he's gonna be there, and just checking in on my grandparents every week, and I knew that I'll have a long conversation with Raul all the time, and he was always just so welcoming and just a great fatherly figure to me. And I'm more up here to like break the ice so like the Pierce family could come up and talk, just because like Connie and Raul have just been such amazing neighbors and family members to us, and like we just knew we were always protected because Raul would start something if anything ever happens in the neighborhood or any break-ins happened. But yeah, I just appreciated throughout my life like having you guys next door, and I can check in on you guys or pick up some pasta or anything. So yeah, I'm just thankful for that we had the best neighbors for my grandparents.
Thanks a lot, Chelsea. I gotta follow that one. My name is Doug Pierce. Like she said, my parents were fortunate enough 30 years ago to buy that house next door. I gotta get something off my chest real quick. So I've got two kids. I got a 20-year-old son who's at University of Arizona, 19-year-old daughter who's at UC Irvine. When my daughter was 3, she pooped in that pool right over there. I've been holding that in for 16 years, Connie. You guys think it's funny, but it was during the 4th of July party when all of you were probably here. So I just want to get that off my chest. Sorry. I've had heart issues, seriously, and I think that's why, because I've held that in for so long. Anyway, when my parents moved here, they really scored in the neighbor department. You know, we got Connie and Raul here, we got Dolores across the street, we got Chuck over there. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's gates, and when they moved in, I went, what the fuck is there a gate? Sorry, children. Like a mom, there's a freaking gate. Like, what's that all about? Like, I don't know. I don't know why there's gates. I said, well, all right. Well, I learned in the last 30 years why there's a gate there. So when they first moved in, I'm like, you were checking out the property and things need to be fixed. And I noticed that, like, one of my dad's sprinklers was broken, like a pipe. So I'm back there digging with a pick and a shovel. And all of a sudden I hear this neighbor who was Raul. Hey, what are you doing over there? I'm trying to fix this. Hey, let me come through. And he comes through the gate. What are you doing? I said, well, this pipe. You don't know what the hell you're doing. I'll be right back. And he comes and he goes. He gets all these tools, comes back up, and he's fixing stuff, telling me what to do. And I said, hey, Raul, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. So I go downstairs, go to the bathroom. My dad goes, hey, what's that guy saying up there? I don't know. Fuck, he's talking too damn fast, but he's fixing the hell out of that pipe over there, Dad. And that was Raul. I've come through that gate 1,000 times. And usually I go visit my parents and I sit outside. I'm like, please be talking next door and food I can smell, please. And I would get there and I'm like, fuck yeah, there's food out there. I walk up and I'd yell, hey, Raul, what's up, buddy? Hey, come on over. I'm like, I'm coming over. And I'd go ahead and drink some beers and I would eat thousands of times. My parents are still there. I wouldn't admit that to them, that half the time I come over was to visit them, but it was also I'm going to go hang out down at Raul. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I learned in the next 30 years, those gates, they serve a really good purpose. My last story with Raul, my parents used to have a Christmas party every year, and I used to be the bartender. And one time I got the great idea that I'm going to do some shots of tequila with Raul. And we're going to go one-on-one. So I had one. Come on, Raul. He had one too. A couple minutes later, hey, let's do another. But then he would send Connie. And I would do one with Connie. And then I did one with Raul. And then with Connie. And I didn't realize, fuck, I'm doing twice as much as they are. Right? And I felt that the next morning, and Raul said, you're a freaking idiot, dude. And I got my degree in math. So, that's my story, Raul. I'm going to miss the guy. I loved him. So, thanks for letting me talk. I appreciate it.
I'm actually funnier than he is. That's my brother. Same stories. We just had fun here all the time. Raul, I went through a divorce a pretty long time ago, and I don't even know if you know this. He would come to my house like twice a week to check on me and to fix stuff. He would say, Danielle, go ahead and put a little list together. And I was like, what? Just put a little list together of some stuff you need done around the house. And I'm like, really? He was like, yeah. Well, my list was like this. I'm all right, Raul, here you go. And we would talk and talk and talk, and he'd fix little things here and there, and we'd drink coffee in the morning, usually twice a week. And he was also there for my kids, for, Chelsea. He loved that Chelsea was a swimmer, and actually gave her Raul's jacket.
My parka.
Your parka.
Yeah. Put it to better use.
Yeah, I think she might have been a better swimmer than you too. But I think what it is at Common Ground wise, we all have a relationship with him, and we always felt like he really listened. And it wasn't like he would come and he literally was your friend. And he would talk to you like you were the only person there. And I just think it's wonderful that we're all here, and we might be crying, but we are laughing too. He would be kind of pissed that we're crying. So we got to make sure we, pump it up a little bit, because that's what he would want. But we just miss him, and we love you. And I'm sure we're going to be dropping through the gate all the time. It's still, ever since we were little. So thank you. Thank you.
Probably won't be light, but I'll do my best to weave some humor in. So for those, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know I'm Raul Amezcua, my dad's son. In my eulogy, I talked a lot about my dad. He really, he's an amazing man, and he taught me a lot. And when you're a son, or your child, I think it's hard sometimes to have the objectivity that, you really see like what your parents are doing for you. Like my mom and my dad sacrificed so much so I could do what I do today and provide for my family and just, live the life I live. And I've been extremely fortunate. And that's because of the hard work of my parents. I remember though, like kind of taking a little bit through my life with my dad, him working nights and coming home from LAPD. He's undercover, so he's just wearing his street clothes and kind of looked pretty scary for a suburban neighborhood. And he'd drive me to school, and I remember two things. One, the passenger seat, and thankfully I was small. I was only like 6 years old. It was filled with coffee cups because they hadn't invented travel mugs yet. So he would drive to work with like coffee cups, and you could never find a coffee cup in the house because they're always in Dad's car. And Mom would get so pissed. I didn't drink coffee. I was like 6 or 7. So I didn't live up to that part of my Colombian heritage. And then the other thing that would happen is my dad had a snub-nosed 38 that would occasionally, when it hit the brakes, would fall out from under the seat. And so he's like, hey, can you just tuck that back, but be very careful? And I was like, yes, I guess, Dad, sure. And he would take me shooting, and we'd have a blast together. He took Brett shooting once when we were kids, and then he's like, yeah, I don't think we're going to relive that one ever again. And so, but no, he was great. I mean, like Brett said, he would wrestle with us. He would just play with us. He would always, lack of a better term, he'd always put a boot in our ass too, and it was much needed. I mean, we needed it. I mean, we grew up, our parents all sacrificed a lot, and we're definitely children of privilege, and we definitely sat on our laurels at times, but Raul was always there to like right the course, kind of give you that boot in the ass and slap in the back of the head. And same with Brett's parents, Nat and Barbara, would do the same. I remember in college, I'd never failed anything in my life, and I failed an organic chemistry test because I had the brilliant idea that I wanted to be a doctor. And so, it's not one of the best choices in my life. I made some few bad ones, but so I was really like kind of tail spinning. And Mike Small, you sitting over there, he remembers. He kind of had to help me through it a little bit. And I never like kind of lacked that kind of confidence in my life. And I got a phone call one day. And Mike's like, "Hey, it's your dad." And it was like the middle of the day, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "My dad's calling me like at 2:00 in the afternoon. That's not good." So I don't know how my dad knew. I don't know if because my Uncle Ben and Aunt Maria lived in San Diego, and if they maybe like saw something and told my parents. But my dad reached out, and I remember he gave me some of the best advice and love too. He was like, "Hey, look," he's like, "You got two choices as I see it. You can either press on, pull it together, graduate, or you can just drop out, come home." And he's like, "No matter what, I'll still love you." And it just resonated with me. I was like, I get it. It's like my choice. I gotta pick up the slack and start performing. So I did, and did well. And thanks to Mike, pulling me out of the sciences and putting me in good old political science, which is like just 2 midterms in the final. It's pretty awesome. The books are really light, and I could usually do it over like a pint and a slice. So it's decent. And then, and then life went on. I graduated from college, and then while I was going to college, every summer, every break, my dad was doing fixer-uppers. He's buying repossessed homes, and he was his own general contractor, and I was his, laborer and kind of stooge sometimes, but I probably deserved it. It was fun. We had a lot of fun together. We had some kicks. We were doing some houses in some pretty rough areas back in the 90s. But I learned a lot. And then I would see the guys that were coming to like my dad's real estate agents and mortgage brokers, and they're like, driving in BMWs and wearing like nice clothes. And I'm like, well, what do those guys do, Dad? And he's like, well, let me tell you, dummy. So, and he would come and he would tell me, and I'm like, wait, so I'm digging ditches and pouring concrete and like framing walls, hanging drywall, and these guys are doing this and they're driving those and looking like that. He's like, yeah. And he's like, what do you think about that after you graduate? I'm like, I don't know, I'd be interested, I guess. Doesn't sound too shabby. So then it was the recession in the mid-90s. It was hard to find a job. My cousin Bob actually got me a job at Macy's. Caught mono, lost like 20 pounds. That was kind of cool. That's some beer weight I'd put on. Stopped playing water polo. So that was good. And then I started get some interview jobs, and my dad had a buddy, and I got an interview at this company called Norwest Bank. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa. Long story short, it was great education for me for what I do today, 30 years later almost. But I hated it. I totally hated it. It was horrible office environment culture, and my dad was doing a fixer-upper, one of his last ones in Pomona. You remember that, Mom? Yeah. And when we're not far from where I worked, and my dad would show up not every day, but he would show up at least twice a week in his red Toyota 4x4 truck, dirty work boots, dirty jeans, dirty t-shirt. And of all places, he always, every time we went, which was super cool, he wanted to go eat at Nordstrom's restaurant. And he would just show up all dirty, and I was like in a shirt and tie, and he just did not care. He was just so there's ego and lack of self-esteem. That just didn't exist in Raul Mesqua. Those things never factored in his head, which I admire so much for him. But it gave me the energy I needed to keep going. And then I got into my own entrepreneurial endeavors, and Dad and I did really well together and we had a fucking blast. And it was, one of the things that we used to do was, especially when the times were good, this little tradition that some of you have participated in was called Whiskey Fridays. So every Friday, my dad and I would break out a bottle of whiskey about, sometimes noon, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, just depending on the Friday. And we just start drinking. And it was kind of like our father, son, and friends and family moment. Whoever stopped by the office we'd partake in Whiskey Fridays. And we just sit there and shoot the breeze and just have a great time. And it was just I think for my dad, those were some of the happiest moments he had, because I think he started seeing hey, this kid I was definitely concerned about being a little bit lazy growing up is starting to become something. Now I can celebrate and have a drink with him. And then you flash forward and you know, just what I'm doing now today in life is, you know, I can't ask for better opportunity, better gig. I mean, pretty fortunate at what I do. And I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for my dad. I mean, he, it was tough. 2022 was a tough year. I mean, professionally, it was probably the best year of my life. And I talk to my dad every day, and like Dr. Art said, I'd ask him, Dad, what's going on? How are you feeling? How are you doing today? He's like, don't worry about that. You know, he's like, well, what's going on at work? He's like, you get any new projects going and you got something going on? He's like, tell me about this project here. He's like, what's going on today? He's like, that supply chain issue that you're facing, is that going away? I'm like, yeah, Dad. We got refrigerant lines for AC units, we're good. And he's like, oh, and there's one time when we started a big project and our steel manufacturer didn't want to send us steel. And so I was freaking out. And I had overbought steel, like during COVID pandemic, I've overbought 200 tons of 16 gauge steel, which is a lot of steel. And so, because I thought I couldn't get it, and I told my dad, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna get fired. And my dad's like, hey, he's like, you know, you struggled finding it. He's like, do you think other people are struggling finding it? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point, Dad. So I picked up the phone, I made some phone calls, and I ended up selling it, and we actually made a little money on it, which is great. But it's those moments that I miss, because I would call my dad so much and just get this like salient perspective that he always had for me. And that's one of the things I'm gonna miss the most. And the other thing I'm gonna miss the most is listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival radio, which is his favorite Pandora, like favorite. That, and if you ever were with my dad and you knew he was a big Johnny Cash fan, and if the song The Ballad by Ira Hayes, which was about a Marine in Iwo Jima that raised the flag, he had that song on repeat on his phone. I literally drove from here to Laughlin with him one time, and we heard that song the whole way. And I asked him if we could change it, and he said, it's a really good song, can we just listen to it one more time? I said, sure, Pop, no problem. So, but I just, you know, to my dad, he's just an amazing guy. It was always so, his selfishness was just unprecedented. I mean, he would just always ask me how work was going, how V and Alicia were doing. He always asked about Alicia a ton. Always was concerned about her new boyfriend. I told him, you know, Ethan's a good guy, Dad. You don't have anything to worry about. He's like, okay, good. And then even up to the very end, and as I'm gonna get here to the kind of wrapping it up. You guys remember, like, kind of like in early January, we were having those heavy rains, and this is when we knew my dad was pretty much he was on his way out, but he was still just raw. And he goes, "Hey, Mio," I was like, "Do me a favor." And I was in the hospital with him. It was about before I was gonna go home. It was about 8 or 9 o'clock on Wednesday night of the 8th, I believe. And no, 7th. And so he goes, "Hey, don't have Alicia drive home tonight and Ethan drive to Philadelphia tomorrow. I looked at my phone, it's gonna rain really heavy." Just being raw, just looking out and just saying, just have her leave the next day, it's all right. Tell her, don't worry about it, like everything's gonna work out fine. And I go, "Dad, that's a great, you know," "No, I feel the same way." I'm like, "I'll definitely tell her that." And they stayed and they left and they got home from LA to Philadelphia in 3 days. As my dad, before my dad got the BiPAP on, I mean, his communication on January 9th was not much. On January 8th was the last time I really had an opportunity to spend a whole day with him and talk to him. And we had the amazing last father and son talk you wish every son and father could have with their dad. And it was amazing. And it meant the world to me. But so I knew after that, I knew the end was near, and I called my daughter, literally just, I don't even think she had time to go to the bathroom when she walked in her house in Philadelphia, and told her, "Hey, Pops, probably not going to be conscious more than one more day. And do you want to fly home? There's no right or wrong answer. You know, there's no guilt. I just want to give you the opportunity if you want to come home and see him one last time." And then we just drove across the country. So she said, "Yeah, Dad." She's like, "Just buy the ticket. I want to leave tomorrow. Let's get me home. I want to see Pop." So the next day they had to put the BiPAP on. So my dad's speech is very, very limited, and but he's still there. He's all 100% there, cognitively. And, you know, I was just telling him like throughout the day, like, hey, Dad, you gotta hang on. Alicia's coming. She's flying. She's halfway here. You know, oh, she's about to land in an hour. Oh, she's landed. Okay, the car's picked her up. She's gonna be here in an hour. And then like halfway through, it was so cute. He's like, you know, they were giving him drugs. So he's got a little loopy at times. And he goes, well, he goes, well, he's like, Alicia's coming to see you? He's like, well, she just left. And I go, yeah, that's coming because she loves you. He's like, well, I love her too. And he just conked out. And then so they got to spend some time together, which is great. And then I think kind of the last moment we had was I took my mom and V in to go see my dad on the night of the 9th, Monday night. It was raining like horribly, remember? And we just came in and we saw Dad. And so I go, Dad, can you, you know, just, I want to confirm in front of Mom, you don't want to go to hospice. And he's like, no, fighting. And I go, okay. I go, you know, he's so cute. And he goes, he's like, I'll practice my breathing. And he's like, I go, okay, Dad, just keep the BiPAP on or they're going to send you to hospice. So the next morning, unfortunately, I got there to the hospital and he just had a stroke and it was pretty brutal. And then he was sedated that whole day. So now, is Ariana nearby? I think you could hear like through resonating today is like my dad always called like his own shot. He just always did no matter what. Whether he made it known or not, he was just always kind of carving out blazing his path in the world. And so we played a lot of games together with especially Sequence. That's one where Raul and my mom and V and I would stay up and we almost till like the sun came up, listen to Clearwater Revival Station and he would not let you go. He'd always want to play another game. And if he lost, you had to play 3 more because he hated to lose. And he was great at games. I'd never beat him in chess. Never. The guy was a mastermind. And so he laid there peacefully. It looked like, you know, he had gone out and done a hard day's work and he was just resting, just very calmly, breathing very peacefully. And we, you know, thought maybe the nurse said, hey, it'd probably take an hour or two for him to expire. Dad went about 4 hours and then, you know, we're just hanging on and just, we're all in there. It was my mom, Vianney, Alicia, my Aunt Maria, and they were giving us a whole lot of static for being that many people in the ICU. And I was like, hey, look, like, at the end, you know, just let us have this moment. I go, I'll deal with any heat that you guys take and just blame me. But we have to be here. I mean, these are the people that have been really supporting him, you know, a lot throughout this 2.5-year journey. So on the song came on, and it was Shooting Star by Bad Company. And when the chorus kind of hits like, you're a shooting star, yes you are, that's when my dad took his last breath. It was a hell of a moment. But it's like only Raw could choose to go out on a song like that. And like just like George Costanza would say from Seinfeld, he just high noted it and he just walked out of the room. So what we're gonna do right now is toast my dad. We're gonna play Shooting Star. So every time you hear it, hoist one up for Raul. Remember the good times you had with him because he remembers the ones he had with you. And just have a smile on your face, you know, and warmth in your heart. That's all he ever wanted. Okay, now we get kicked off. So, all right, here we go. We're gonna toast champagne, and we're gonna have a little like light show going on here in a second for Raul. It's gonna be really special, I hope. So, all right, 1, 2, 3, you're on.
When he heard his first Beatles song, Love Me Do, I think it was, and from there it didn't take him long. Got himself a guitar, used to play every night. Now he's in a rock and roll outfit and everything's alright. Don't you know? Johnny told his mama, hey mama, I'm going away. I'm gonna hit the big time, gonna be a big star someday, yeah. Mama came to the door with a teardrop in her eye. Johnny Johnny said, don't cry, mama, smiled and waved goodbye. Don't you know? Yeah, yeah. Don't you know that you are a shooting star? Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know that you are a shooting star? In all the world will love you just as long as you are. Johnny made a record, went straight up to number one. Suddenly everyone loved to hear him sing a song. Watching the world go by, surprising it goes so fast. Johnny looked around him and said, well, I made the big time at last. Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know that you are a shooting star? Don't you know? Whoa, yeah. Don't you know that you are a shooting star? Yeah. And all the world will love you just as long as you are. Yeah, shooting star.
That's right. There's a story I gotta tell you about me and Raul in Hong Kong. We got stopped by the Hong Kong police. So what it was me and Raul, the rickshaw drivers, made them get into the rickshaw, and then me and Raul raced down the street, running, using a rickshaw. So they stopped us, and the police got mad at the rickshaw drivers, but it wasn't all that bad. Me and Raul both gave them a big tip.
Johnny died one night, died in his bed. Bottle of whiskey, sleeping tablets by his head. Johnny's life passed him by like a warm summer day. If you listen to the wind, you can still hear him play.